and welcome to Coffee with Connie and Salena Baca. And for those of y'all that are not familiar with Salena Baca, she has written several crochet books. She writes a lot of patterns, and she's the founder of the American Crochet Association. And she is an amazing crochet teacher. I was hopeless when it came to learning how to crochet. And I never thought I was going to learn. And then I stumbled across Salena Baca's lessons on crafting. And she was the most thorough teacher. I picked it up right away once I started doing her lessons. And, and since then, it's been easy. It just comes to me.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm glad we're connecting again because we're old friends now. But someone was talking about learning to crochet and you just wrote the nicest thing about learning. And it just, so I'm glad that made us kind of reconnect again.
Yes, this is actually Selena's second time going live with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was still in the first year of my channel when you came live with me the first time.
Yeah, it's been years, a couple years.
But yeah, that's why I always say don't give up when you want to learn how to do something. You got it. You can do it. A lot of times it's finding that right teacher for how everyone learns differently.
I think that's the thing. I think that everyone learns differently, and it's just about, I know how to crochet, obviously, but using language that other people can understand. There's language that I use now that sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm talking to someone when I'm teaching, I'm talking to someone who's just learning to crochet. So let me kind of break down even the terms that are everyday to me so that they don't feel like I'm just talking over their head.
And that's why a lot of times, sometimes you need that thoroughness.
Yeah.
When it comes to learning. And I know this is one of my biggest pet peeves. I want to see where that crochet hook's going.
That's the thing. Actually, I just took knitting lessons for the first time, like proper knitting lessons. And, so I was just a beginner in something brand new in the yarn arts. And I had the hardest time understanding how the yarn was wrapped around the needle. I just, like, you could tell me in different ways, and then I could do it while you were standing there, and then I would comfortably do something different. And I was constantly like twisting my stitches. And so I guess from that perspective, like, I finally got it, but I feel like I just had to watch the same thing 8 different times before I was like, oh, now I can understand what it even means to wrap the yarn around the needle. So I think in crochet, yeah, you may need to see something 10 different ways by 10 different people to really feel like you understand it.
And that's always been my advice. Try different tutorials, different content creators.
Yes.
Eventually, you're probably going to stumble across a tutorial that's going to work for you.
Absolutely. And I do the same thing whenever there's no one way that even I learn. Like, you got to tell me, you got to show me, and then you got to say it a different way. Like, and then, I need to like taste it, feel it, touch it almost. And so even when I want to, learn a new stitch, whatever that is, or learn a new technique, sometimes I'll even watch like 3 completely different perspectives because I'm going to spot the similarities, or I'm going to spot like whatever maybe the difference is in the technique, so I can find what really solidifies it for me.
And like, it's a huge honor for me to have the person that I learned crochet from coming live with me, not just once, but now a second time.
All blush. You're too kind. You really.
And I did a video a couple of days ago showing a book that Salena Baca sent to me.
Yes, I did.
And
I'm glad you got it.
it's autographed, and it's just like I have an autographed book by the person that taught me how to crochet. How awesome is that?
I was happy to give it to you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
hope you love it. I hope you go through the patterns and you like them and you have fun working through it.
I'm sure I will.
Oh, I missed that video, so now I'm gonna have to go back and watch. I'm glad you said something.
Yeah, I titled it something like How I Learned How to Crochet and Who I'm Going Live with Friday.
Oh,
So
that's cute.
I started off telling the story about my
Mhm.
struggles with learning to crochet and how I learned from you. And then I showed the book that you sent and talked
Hmm.
about this live.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, and I'll share it because I I want people to enjoy the things that I make, and I think that whenever my work is in the hands of people and they're talking about it, I want to see that and I want to share that. So I will
And
do that after our chat.
I find that Salena, like when you see her work, it's very clean.
Mm.
Like her stitches look crisp and short.
I'd work really hard to get it that way.
Awesome. But I do want to say hello to everybody. Those of y'all that are here with us now, and those that will be watching on the replay, I want to welcome y'all. Now, I'm going to interact with the chat to some degree, and I will later on be doing more chat time during the live. So I don't want anyone to feel ignored or anything like that. But today's live is going to go a little differently than usual. But I do see we have Angela, Lacey Lavender, Charity, Salena Baca's in the chat too,
Selena's in the chat.
Marsha Lee, Debbie Grabert, and Julia, Sherry, Susan, Regina, Lana, Beverly.
Wow, it's a full house today.
Yeah, I'm so glad y'all could all join us. Now, I do ask my moderators if you can help make sure everyone is greeted and everyone feels welcome today. But later on, we'll open the chat up more, answer questions, stuff like that. But yeah, so like I was saying, I learned crochet from Salena, and it's kind of funny because Salena is a big name in crochet, but I've noticed a lot of people have not heard of you.
Yeah.
Which amazes me.
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet. I don't need people to know me. I think it's more important for me that I share things that make a difference in the crochet life of others. So I really don't feel the need to have that spotlight. I'd rather put the spotlight on other people who, maybe use some of my resources and really enjoy them. I feel like that's more important.
And because most of us, we look at the people on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And Salena don't have a strong presence on YouTube. Although she does have a channel, the American Crochet Association, which I do have the link in the description box of today's live. But she's known more for her book. And I don't know if you still do anything on Craftsy. But I know.
No, Craftsy is not really a thing anymore. So I don't think there's going to be any more Craftsy opportunities.
So are they discontinuing it or?
Yeah, so Craftsy, the original entity, was sold a couple times, and the industry that owns Craftsy now, I mean, they just own the library, but I don't think they're really producing things in the way Craftsy was anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. So the
But that's
content lives on, but I think that what Craftsy was doing and the way they were doing it, that's not a thing anymore.
see, that's how I stumbled across Salena Baca.
Mm-hmm.
Now, now the only thing I didn't care about Crafty, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like their cancellation
Oh, how
policy.
so? What do you mean?
Well, normally you can cancel things online when you have a online subscription, but with them you had to call them.
Oh yeah, that's a
And one thing that made me really uncomfortable, there was no confirmation of the cancellation.
mm-hmm.
Because I asked if I'm going to get an email, like, no, but I made sure the day that it was supposed to cancel that I didn't
Yeah.
get charged again,
Yeah.
and they canceled it. So I didn't have any actual issue, but that that made me uncomfortable.
I completely agree. And I want to, when I'm paying somebody money, especially when it's on a subscription basis, it's really nice to feel like you have some kind of control or like visibility over what you're paying and when and whether or not you can cancel. So, yeah, I'm sorry that was your experience. I
But I
hope
mean,
maybe they changed it. Yeah, hopefully they're doing better now.
I mean, well, really, you were the only thing I really did on Craftsy. I did your lessons. I learned how to crochet, so it was worth it.
Nice. I'm so glad. Yeah, I really loved filming that class. I really loved sharing the things that work really well for me. And I mean, I filmed that class. Has it been 8 years? I think it's been like 8 years since I filmed that class. And since I did, I've built so many other resources that kind of support the content in that class. And there are still people finding me every single week. They're like, hey, I took your class on Craftsy and I liked your teaching so much. I just had to see if you were still out there in the world. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, because like the thing that confused me the most with trying to learn to crochet, what to do when you get to that end of the row, the chain so many times, the turning,
Yep.
and I found that was so confusing. And the way that you taught it, it's like, oh, okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you knew what the stitches looked like. It was count your stitches, count your stitches, count your stitches.
Oh yeah.
And it's like Salena instilled strong basics the way
Yes.
that she taught. And use your stitch markers. That's where I got the stitch markers from. I'm still a firm believer in stitch markers.
Once you start using them and you know how to use them, I mean, it's like magic. Yeah.
Because it's like sometimes that first and last stitch gets hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use stitch markers, you're going to know where it's at.
That's exactly right. Yeah. No, I feel like that's kind of the main method to my madness. I think that's my claim to fame, so to speak. It's just using stitch markers and knowing what counts as a stitch and what doesn't. And I think that it's not really, I don't want to say people don't teach that way, but it's like that doesn't seem to be the focus in the world of crochet. I think people are very project focused, they want to learn the basics, but they're like, I'll do that while I make a thing that I want to make. And so there's so many fundamentals that are skipped over, and then people just, they might be out here crocheting things, but it's like it's always a struggle. So my philosophy is always like, I don't care how long you've been crocheting, I don't care how many things you've made, let's really solidify those basics. And then you're not going to have the same struggles or questions or concerns, even though you've crocheted 10,000 blankets. You're going to be able to move through crochet far more easily.
And once you have your basics,
Mm-hmm.
and I always say this, if you know how to chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and somewhat treble crochet, which I don't find you have to do trebles as often,
Yeah.
then you can make anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, arguably, if you just learn the chain, single, and double, if you really just hone in on those and you practice those, I mean, any other variation of, the half doubles and the trebles, or the, the double trebles. I mean, all of those are really just like, a few extra or few steps. And so when you just understand the motions of the basics, I feel like you really can do anything. You don't have to, kind of try to kill yourself learning all of these basics. And really, there just are a few that if you do them well, you can do anything else.
All right, I see we have a question. Cheryl wants to know, how do you decide what stitches and yarn you want to use for a pattern design?
Oh, I go through so much trial and error. I'm working on a book right now. I can't really, you can see some of the things, but I can't really show you too much else. But so much of what I do is first deciding what kind of look or theme I'm going for, what kind of collection I'm going for. And depending on what that collection is, right now it's clothes, they can't be stiff, they can't be too big, they can't, I want them to be styled and fit a certain way. And so many of the things that I wanted to make, I wound up, swatching 3-4 different yarns just for one thing. I wound up changing my hook size, changing up the stitch pattern. So much of it is trial and error, because I want a very specific fabric. I want a specific style. And I want to make sure that whatever it is that I'm making, that someone else can reproduce it and love the results. So oftentimes I know what I want to make. I know what I want it to look like. I know what I want it to feel like. And then it's just trial and error of deciding what yarn, what gauge, what texture, what hook. I mean, just putting all of that into play until I come up with the thing that I think is going to look and feel the best.
And that's one thing I know. What I do with designing patterns, it's you're playing with stitches. You're going to do stuff that doesn't work, and you're frogging. And then you try something else, and another thing I find is helpful, stitch book.
Oh yeah, no, getting a stitch book and just kind of practicing different stitches to see what you're comfortable with and what those can be, what they can turn into. Yeah, that's a really good place to start.
And even on YouTube, there's lots of stitch tutorials. I know, like, my go-tos tend to be Bag O' Day, Creative Grandma, Fiber Spider, Rich Texture Stitches, or something like that. I might be a little off, but those tend to be my go-to channels for stitches.
Oh yeah, those are great ones.
And I love learning new stitches. I mean, there's just so many, and some beautiful ones. Now, do you find you have any certain stitches that are your favorite?
There are a couple stitch patterns that I've used multiple times just because I really like it. But I think the thing that I like most is I like mindless repetition. And I want to use stitch patterns that don't require all of my thought, where I can, if I'm in a room with other people, or if I'm being social, or if I'm watching TV or something, I can do both at the same time. So if the stitch can allow me to do that, no matter like the stitch pattern or combination, those are the ones I like the most.
You see, I find like I'm kind of the opposite. I want, like, if I'm being too repetitious, I get bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I tend to like stuff that challenges me more. And all right, I see we had a question. All right, Marshall's asking, do you have any advice for a blind person who wants to crochet garments?
I wondered if that was you, Marshallee. Marshallee, it's so good to hear it's so good to hear that you're here. Okay, so the question was, do I have any advice for someone who's blind who wants to crochet garments? I guess here's my perspective as a person who isn't blind, but I do crochet garments. So I hope that this is helpful. And, from your perspective, I guess share some things that are helpful for you, and maybe we can come up with some better solutions. But I imagine that there are some things that you're probably very comfortable crocheting. Maybe there's certain stitch patterns you're comfortable with, or maybe you've made a garment before and you understand that construction. So find things that you're comfortable with already and build from there. Maybe that could be a really good place to start, depending on what kind of garments you want to make. I mean, there's so many different kinds. So maybe narrow it down to what you want to make, and then further narrow down from there what you want the feel and the style to be. I mean, do you want to make a really big, bulky pullover sweater? Do you want to make a light and lacy tank top? So kind of narrowing down from there and finding, I mean, I don't know what the assumption, do you want to make your own, or do you want to find patterns that fit that? I love starting with just going to Ravelry, because there are so many different search criteria you can narrow down. So, you know, thinking about all the criteria you're looking for, distilling it down, and then finding the perfect pattern that's going to, you know, fit exactly what you're looking for. You know, whether you're looking for something that you want to just follow exactly, or if you're just looking for some, you know, inspiration. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. But Marshall-lee, let me know what works for you, and maybe we can continue this conversation.
I think you remember Marshall-lee from the last time we were live together.
I've known Marshall-lee for a minute. I haven't seen your name around in a while, but it's good to see you here.
But yeah, and I saw Cheryl was mentioning this. With like me and her both have had issues with cataracts, and there's other Yarny friends that have had this issue too. And although you're not blind, but there are challenges you face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your vision isn't as good as what it used to be.
Yeah. I guess there are some things that I guess whenever I provide patterns, there's some things that I try to do just to make them more accessible. You know, I try to look outside the lens of just, you know, not only what I find accessible, but what other people could find accessible. So I'm always interested in getting feedback to make sure that whatever I'm producing that people can use. So even making sure things are legible online, they're printer friendly, or I'm not using text that's really hard to read. You know, I'm spacing things out. I'm using, you know, certain colors, and I'm not using other colors. So hopefully those things kind of, you know, help the accessibility of what I make.
Now, one thing I'm curious about, and I don't remember if we discussed this last time you went live with me, but how did you learn how to crochet? And I also want to hear how everybody watching has learned how to crochet.
Yeah. So I grew up in Hawaii, and I went to, you know, really, you know, hippy dippy schools where we learned a lot of, you know, skills and, you know, hands-on art and things like that. And so when I was 5 in kindergarten, we all learned how to crochet, and it was kind of part of our curriculum. We made things, and most of the people I grew up with, you know, we all learned to crochet at the same time. Like, they could crochet and they would, but you know, it just became my obsession. Like, the moment I learned around 5, I just could not put it down. It was like part of my personality.
I wish I would have learned at a young age. I didn't learn until I was 45.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my granny was a crocheter.
Yeah.
And you would have thought that I would have picked, you know, played around with it with her. But when I was younger, I did not have an interest in crocheting. I don't know why.
Well, what makes sense to me, I don't know if this is true or not, but what makes sense to me from my perspective is that, you know, needle arts was a hobby, but, you know, our mothers and grandmothers and great-great-grandmothers, you know, they were using needle arts of all kind to make things around the home. They were making things that they needed. So I mean, it was a hobby, and it was like a leisurely activity, but it was also like a job they had to do. Like, I got to make a blanket because winter's coming or something like that. And I wonder if the perspective of, you know, the people before us who were doing that, like, you know, it's really hard to raise kids and do needle arts at the same time. So it's kind of like, kid, I got to do this thing. You go over there, I'm doing this. These two things don't intermix. And I wonder if that happened a lot, to where maybe there weren't enough means and opportunity to share it in a fun, leisurely hobby kind of way. I wonder.
And I think because I kind of looked at it more as something your grandma did.
Hmm.
And but the irony is, I cross stitched whenever I was young.
Mhm.
I used to do the little looms with the pot holders.
Mhm.
I would help my granny make her quilt. She would
Mhm.
sew the little patches by hand, and I would take the needle and thread, helping her or cutting the squares from her for her. But I never played with yarn.
Oh, I'm so glad that I did, because and actually we tried a lot of different creative arts. There were so many different things that I learned, like painting and coloring with beeswax crayons and making beeswax sculptures. And I mean, just so many different, you know, finger painting and just so many different
Mhm.
textiles and arts. And but yeah, crochet, even though that was just one of the things that we learned and then moved on, like it just stuck with me.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, whenever I finally got interested. I tried to learn.
Hmm.
Didn't happen. And I know there was a second time I tried to learn the same thing. And then that's when I started playing with loom knitting.
Mm, yeah.
And but I felt looms restricted you. And there weren't
Yeah.
as many patterns. So then I'm like, let me try real knitting. And got onto it. And then
Oh yeah.
I
Okay.
learned how to knit first.
Okay.
And then I was like, there was stuff that I wanted to make, but I couldn't find the patterns I was looking for in knitting. But I would
Hmm.
always see the crochet patterns, and I'm like, I really want to crochet.
I want to make that thing. I feel that way about knitting, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to try knitting, even though it it was very hard for me to learn. I just feel like I was seeing all these fabrics in these different projects that I really wanted to make that don't quite translate well to crochet. So yeah,
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 with knitting, there's certain looks you don't get with crochet, and I find my
yeah.
favorite things with knitting crochet sweaters,
Hmm.
and I love like the cables. I love cables and knitting and soft,
Yes, yes,
soft.
they're beautiful.
Um, that's where I find knitting really stands apart from crochet on those things. At least that's my opinion. I mean, everyone has differences
Yeah,
of opinion, but
I agree. I hear you.
all right. So, Salena founded the American Crochet Association. So, I'm going to let her tell y'all some more about the American Crochet Association.
Thank you. Yeah, I started the American Crochet Association 10 years ago this October. So this year is going to be our 10th anniversary. And I started that because at the time, or a couple years before I started the American Crochet Association, I was working for an online crochet magazine, and we were trying to launch this thing to where people could crochet patterns and learn and grow and just, you know, build a community. And while my job started out at this magazine being like a content creator, you know, kind of either getting content from others, getting contributors, or, you know, creating content myself, I found that more often than not, there was always some learning or teaching element to the things that we were doing. Or there was something that I was naturally teaching so that people could work these patterns that we were creating. And so naturally over time, I was just like, this magazine is fun, but the thing I really want to do is, all of these teaching resources that I keep finding and creating so that people can crochet better. I was thinking, I think that we can fine tune this into courses, and that way it doesn't matter how long you've been crocheting, there's a course that you can take that will just help you crochet more, better, faster, and with fewer mistakes. And so I built every single course and lesson at the American Crochet Association. It took me a really long time, but now there is a course for literally anyone who likes crochet. If you want to learn to crochet, if you want to build your skills, if you want to start a career, whether it be teaching crochet, writing crochet patterns, or selling your finished projects, I have a workshop and guidelines and support and a community to help you do that. So you can find it at americancrochetassociation.blog, where I have articles, I have patterns, but mainly and most importantly, I have crochet resources that are just going to help people continue to pass crochet through the generations in better hands than we found it.
And I feel like you never stop learning.
Never.
There's so much to learn when it comes to crochet.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know me, like I crave learning more.
I like learning, but I teach what makes sense to me. And what makes sense to me is that I want to see different versions or iterations of something so that I can really understand what it is that you're trying to share with me. And so every teaching tool or every lesson that I have, it's just to the point. I work really hard to make sure that if you're going to trust the American Crochet Association with your time, I don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time. So lessons can be taken in just, 15 minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day. I want you to learn and understand. And that way you don't feel like you've exhausted all of your crochet time. Then you can go and do the thing that you want to do.
And from my experience, Salena is a good teacher.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you think so.
on the channel of the American Crochet Association, she does have some tutorials there.
Yes.
On some different things. Oh, Niecy got to meet you. Ooh. Freehandly made crochet.
Oh, yeah?
She said she got to meet you at the yarn shop in Bend, Oregon last year.
That's right. You did. You came in. We took some pictures. I gave you a book. I'm glad you traveled safely back home. That was so fun. I was so glad that you came in.
I am curious, like, what yarny people have you met?
Oh, what yarny people have I met?
Yeah, probably more the bigger names, because, like someone like me or somebody like that, a lot of people wouldn't know who I am. But have you met any of the bigger names in crochet?
Oh yeah, it's been some time. I used to travel a lot more. I used to, teach. I used to give workshops. I've done speaking events, and when I was teaching at Craftsy, I've met so many different people. I think I'd have to go back and really look. But some people that I've met that are my friends, who we meet up time and time and time again. Marley Bird is one of my favorite people in the crochet world. Oh yeah, we're great friends, Marley and I. We met for the first time when I filmed my first Craftsy class, because she lived in Colorado at the time and I was in Denver, and we had already known each other for a couple of years online, but that was the first time we met up. And since then we've vacationed together. Like, she is my girl. I love Marley Bird. I've met up with Brianna Kay of Brianna Kay Designs. I've met, I can't think of anybody else now. I have met a lot of people. When I went to H&H a couple years ago, I met quite a few people there, took some, I'll have to go back through and look at who I took pictures with and stuff like that. Interweave Yarn Fest, I was a speaker there quite a few years ago, met so many great instructors and people in the yarn industry. But yeah, I think those are two of my favorites, Marley Bird and Brianna Kay.
I learned so much about knitting from Marley Bird.
Oh yeah, she does both. She's the she is the bi crafty queen.
Like I actually learned my beginner stitches from Expression Fiber Art with knitting. And then once I started making projects, I did a lot of Marley Bird.
Yeah, and she's great.
She is. She's one I would love to either meet her or like have her on a live day.
She is one of the busiest and most dedicated women I know. She is so intentional and inspiring. I mean, ask her to be on. You never know. Ask her.
I did reach out.
Always reach out to people.
I did reach out to her. I never heard anything back, but I know she's a busy woman.
She is a busy lady, and she also has assistants. So I think sometimes you just got to keep trying. Just because you don't hear anything, it doesn't mean no. It just means not yet.
But if she happens to watch this live, if you ever want to come live with me, Marley Bird.
Hi, Marley Bird. If she's out there watching.
She's probably not familiar with me, though.
You never know.
You never know. You never did. You don't know who could be watching.
Yeah.
All right. Susan is asking. She's trying to learn to read a crochet pattern. Do not feel like that, Susan. Don't feel that way. She wants to know about recommendations.
Yeah, I do have recommendations. I actually have an entire article that I wrote with tips on tips to read a crochet pattern. If it's okay with Connie, we can share that later. So I think first and foremost, you back up just a few steps and understand how crochet patterns are written and why they're written the way they are. Crochet patterns have a cover page before the instructions. So it's really important to go through that cover page and read everything that it says, because it's going to tell you everything that you need to know, have, and do to read through the instructions and follow them. In terms of what acronyms they use, what those acronyms mean, if there's any specialty stitches or techniques, how they're written, how they're going to be annotated, how they're defined. So I think that's a really important first step. And then before you pick up your yarn and your hook, before you just dive into a pattern, always read through all the instructions so that you can really get a feel for how the pattern is constructed, what it's telling you to do, and in what order you're doing things. Language can be interpreted different ways. So a pattern writer may say, turn instead of rotate. And those two things can be very different. So you might be working and going, wait a minute, I thought this was rows. Why is it round? So anyway, reading through the entire thing just to get a feel for how the pattern is written and how it's supposed to be worked. And then just looking up any kind of indicators, like, is this worked in pieces? Is it one piece? Is it one piece that's not fastened off, but then it's different sections, like it's rows and then rounds and then it's rows again? Getting a feel for that. Picking up a few indicators about the language of the pattern. Making sure that there are certain things included in each row or round of instructions. For example, if they're telling you to do something, how clear is that language? If a pattern just says something like increase, but it doesn't tell you what increase means, like what stitch am I using? Increase 2, 3, 4? So you should not have to assume certain things if there's multiple iterations of something. And then making sure that there are stitch counts at the end of every single row or round. I think that having as much information from the pattern writer so that you don't have to guess or second guess, I think those are going to be some of your best tips. And if a pattern is written in a way to where you feel like you're second guessing yourself, it might not be you. Sometimes people just write in a way that is not for a universal audience. So I don't ever want anyone to give up. I'd rather people ask questions. So it's always okay to ask questions if you don't know.
And one thing that I found, well, I learned how to read patterns for the most part from Salena. I learned it as I was learning to crochet.
Yes.
Because she teaches it in the lessons that I did on crafting. But there's still times that I can't always figure out what I'm supposed to do in a pattern.
Same.
And sometimes, you know, if there's a video tutorial, you have to refer to it. Like the gingerbread Afghan that I'm making by Mikey with the Crochet Crowd. I've had to refer to the video tutorial for some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I find the best way to learn to read patterns. Find a video tutorial that also has a written pattern. Morley Bird is good for that. Mikey with the Crochet Crowd. And I'm sure there's other channels that do it too. But that's how you start getting familiar with how stuff is written up. And really, for the most part, it's very similar to how it's verbally said. I think the abbreviations is what kind of trips people up on it. But on a written pattern, at least a well-written pattern should have the list of the abbreviations towards the top.
Yes. And I think some patterns will over-abbreviate. Abbreviations are not the key to writing a crochet pattern. A crochet pattern does need to be condensed. You know, for example, I don't want to say yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull through stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through 2 stitches. We don't need to do that because we universally understand and agree that that is a double crochet. And in a crochet pattern, we don't even need to write double crochet every time. We can just put DC. So universally speaking, it's reasons like that that we use acronyms and we use abbreviations so that we can universally say this thing that we all agree, this stitch is this all the time and there's no variation. I'm just going to say DC. That's brilliant in terms of pattern reading and following. But so many times pattern writers, I'm calling you all out. I'm shaming you. No. Pattern writers will abbreviate everything like skip, beginning, turn, like things that don't, you know, they're not used enough and it's not necessary to abbreviate all of the words because really, I think even from a beginner's standpoint, you're like, BEG, what stitch is that? Oh, I'm just telling you this is the beginning. You can say beginning, you're only using the word 3 times in the entire pattern. We're not saving any space by you doing that. So I think that in reading and following a pattern, if you're seeing way too many acronyms and you're not seeing enough, if you're not seeing enough definition or explanation, it might be a sign that there could be other hurdles within something like that.
And I see Nisi's mentioning Dana with Dana Wonderlust Crochet.
Oh my gosh,
actually
Dana.
How me and Salena started talking. Because
Dana's another one that I met. You were asking me who I've met. I've met Dana. She's fantastic.
Because Dana had mentioned something about Salena one time, and I'm like, that's who I learned how to crochet from. And I was kind of like, oh, that's awesome. You know, Salena. And I was mentioning how I would love to have Salena on a live. And she's like, reach out to her. And I did, and it happened now twice.
And here we are. Here we are. Yeah. I love making time to be part of the community that I love. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Nisi. Thank you for becoming a Stitchin member. I really appreciate that. And GrannyDee's been a Stitchin alien for 27 months. Thank you. So I'm going to quickly play a little video for y'all. Oh, and I also see I got a super chat from Nisi. Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. And I really appreciate when y'all can do that. So thank you. All righty, let's see. Okay, Morley Bird. Morley Bird is associated with Red Heart yarn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of how to explain her. Funny thing is, she kind of reminds me of my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
But she does both knitting and crochet.
Mm-hmm.
She's a really good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a lot of patterns too.
Yes, she does.
Could one of my moderators post Morley Bird's link? You should just be able to look up Morley Bird and find her. I think that's the exact name of her channel.
Goose agrees.
All right, let's see. What's the next thing I wanted to ask? Do you have any new books in the works, Salena?
I do. So I've been producing about 2 books a year. And this year I'm actually working on 3. I just finishing 1. Coming out in, this year, I think I have 2 books coming out this year. One is a GrannySquare. GrannySquare's reimagined into accessories. So it's a bunch of different accessories and they all use the exact same GrannySquare. And that's coming out very soon, I think in April. And you can pre-order now. You can get it anywhere books are sold. And yeah, so more on that when it's coming out. And the next one that's coming out, I believe this fall, is a blanket book, and it's GrannySquare, Granny Stitch reimagined. I think that we all grew up with the classic GrannySquare blankets on the back of our couches. I think we all kind of did that. I've always loved GrannySquares. It was one of the first things that I made, and I think it's still the first thing that a lot of people make. And I think that in the crochet world, you either you like GrannySquares and you appreciate them, or you're like, you think that they're old and crusty and you're tired of them. So with these 2 books, I really wanted to put like a fresh spin on not only blankets that use granny squares, granny hexagons, granny triangles, that use the granny stitch, 10 fresh and modern takes on that. But I also wanted to do more with that classic motif, and that's where the accessories are coming in. So both of those are coming out this year.
Nice. And it's funny you mentioned GrannySquare, because I did a video yesterday sharing a bunch of GrannySquare patterns.
Yeah.
And that's my topic for tomorrow's live.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic topic.
There's so much you can do with GrannySquares. You have the 3D. You have some awesome GrannySquares out
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Janet is mentioning that Sarah Sack has YouTube videos and written patterns on her blog. So she would be another good one. And she's good, Sarah Sack. Okay, I see Morley Bird's link got posted. Good. You can find Salena books on Amazon.
You can. I also have all of my books listed and outlined, including all of their patterns on Ravelry. So if you want to look at the patterns and the yarns and the sizes, all the details, you can find them there too.
Yeah. And all you got to do is just search Salena Baca book. You should be able to find her books just by doing that.
That's right.
But yeah, she has several books.
I think I have 15 so far. Yeah.
But yeah, she's good at coming out with the patterns. And on top of that, let me pull up Ravelry. Give me just a second. I'm closing stuff out. All right, there. See, this is a lot of her patterns here. And you see how she has that really clean look, which she makes.
It took me a while to figure out what the look that I was going for. It took me a really long time. I think you can see the progression of like my photography style.
And on top of this,
Mhm.
now a lot of the patterns you do have to pay for, but there are some that are free.
I
That just
have
did the search
hundreds
feature.
of patterns, yeah, that are free.
See, right now I have it set to free. So, and I am curious, has anyone made any of Selena's patterns? Have y'all made any of them before? Now, I did with the crafty lesson. Let me pull up some pictures of what I made of Salena. And these were my very first projects. All right, this was a scarf that I made. And that's my husband there.
I love the
modeling.
model. Yep.
When I first started crocheting, he was my model.
I love it.
And then there was the cow.
That is beautiful. That is some excellent stitch work right there. Very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks even better. It looks even better modeled. I love it.
There was very nice.
With the pom-pom. Love it.
There was the headband. That's the back side. And I did the headband twice. But yeah, that was what I made of Salena.
Nice. So you went through the whole class and did every project. I love it.
I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing.
You know what you're doing. You got it. That was some excellent work.
And then after that, I just started jumping in to things. Because I think the next thing that I did outside of your patterns, there's that Witch Lake scarf. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh, it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe if I saw it, I would recognize it.
Oh, what's her name? I know her first name's Chelsea, but she has a website. I can't think of the name of it. But she has a lot of cute patterns. A lot of holiday scarf patterns. And it's driving me crazy. I cannot think of her name.
You'll think of it after this call. It'll come to you.
Probably. I think everyone likes seeing Frank. And if you notice how they say in the biscuit, that's his nickname.
Aw.
Thank y'all. All right. So let's see. What was my next question I wanted to ask? What is your favorite thing to crochet?
Whatever I'm currently crocheting. I have a lot of different categories that I crochet in. So I'll make accessories, I'll make clothes, I'll make home decor. I don't really have a favorite in any of those. And I very rarely make the same thing twice after I've published a pattern. Or actually this hat, I've made this hat like 100 times. But I don't have like a favorite thing. I love making new things.
I don't like doing the same pattern twice. I don't.
I feel like even when I feel like, and there have been a couple of things obviously that I made more than once, like when I'm kind of testing out a pattern or something like that, but very rarely once I hit publish, do I go back and make it again. So if I do, I don't know, it's a rare occasion.
See me, I love making shawls.
Yeah? You have a favorite?
I make a lot of Bag O' Days shawls. I love her
Yeah.
shawl pattern.
Yeah.
And then a close second is bean.
Yeah.
And I like making amigurumis, especially gnome.
Oh, that is my least favorite thing to make. I attempted a few times and said, this is not my jam.
Uh,
Yeah. But I
I got
appreciate it. They're so cute. I really, really love them.
I got hooked on gnome. I love gnome. So next thing, all right, we talked about stitches. How did you start designing patterns?
How did I start like my designing career, or what's my process?
I guess both, because I'm interested in both.
Yeah. So I guess they're both kind of the same thing. When I learned to crochet, I learned just by like word of mouth. So we didn't follow a pattern. Someone just told me what to do and I did it. And that was when I was 5. I really did not realize that like the outside world was crocheting until I was much older. And that means I didn't have any resources. So anything that I wanted to make, I felt like I was out here just inventing it myself. And then in my 20s, I was teaching a girlfriend how to crochet. And I taught her how I was taught. You do this, you make a granny square, and this is what you do. You know, you make a blanket or two, and that's it. And that girlfriend looked around, got some books, found Ravelry, and then started teaching me some things. And through that process, I had never learned, or to that point, I didn't learn how to read a pattern, or that, you know, patterns existed or anything like that. And so a lot of what I tried to do was based on what I already knew, and I was trying to figure out how it fit into the world of crochet. So there were a lot of things that I kind of made up and wrote down, and it was really difficult for me to follow written instructions because I didn't even understand the terminology behind what I was doing. So that's how I started designing. Like I'd already designed or been a designer just because I didn't realize there were so many resources available. And yeah, that's how I got into this business. My design process now, I was kind of mentioning it a little bit earlier. I start with what I want to make. I already know what I want it to look like or how I want it to feel or what I want it to do. And then it's just a matter of deciding what yarn or colors or what hook is going to create the thing that I want, and just having fun in that process, putting those things together, making something, making the thing that I wanted to make.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of things did you make in the beginning? Janet wants to know.
Yeah, I really only made blankets and pot holders. I think I just made blankets and pot holders until I was about 25. I'm not kidding you. 25, 28. Because I didn't know there was really anything else to make. I remember trying to kind of make other things, but I had never worked in the round. I'd never worked in creasing rounds. I'd never worked tubes. I didn't know you could crochet bags. I didn't know you could make hats. I didn't know you could make any of that. I thought in crochet, you just make blankets and pot holders. So that's all I ever made.
And it's funny because I think before internet era, most people tended to do blankets. That's the main thing you saw that people made, or doilies.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because we laugh. I always say blankets or my kryptonite because most blankets that I start turn into UFOs. I don't finish them. But I'm working on a Mandela blanket right now, and I'm gonna finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I made a goal to have it finished by the end of 2025. And I did Mandela, where I think part of my problem is the repetition. So I wanted something that was constantly changing.
Yes. Yep.
And I want to be able to work on other projects on the side too. So
yes,
I'm trying to start doing more with blankets.
I I'd only ever made like throw size, maybe twin size. I made a king size once, and I found that because I had a limited what I knew was available in terms of construction was so limited that I was really just like, you chain this amount and then you do this many rows, or you make a granny square, which is from the center out. So I did that for so long, and I really kind of I felt like I got bored with those. Like I was wondering, is this the only way you make blankets? Is you chain 197 and then you just kind of keep going. So even in my last blanket book that I just put together, the granny one, I decided that I wanted to make blankets that were worked in pieces. And I feel like when you do that, it's much more fun. You're always starting, you're starting, you're stopping. It's more portable. I think that you can get far more creative about like pairing different yarns together and seeing how it goes. You can get more creative with the sizing. So I love blankets too, but I really love blankets that are pieced together in a way that's not obnoxious. Like I don't want to make 100 different motifs and then sew them together. That's not what I'm about. But making things that are far more approachable, it kind of feels like making like, oh, I feel like I just made a scarf and now I'm just going to do that 3 or 4 more times and then I'm going to have a blanket. That feels better.
Now, I'm also curious. Do you have advice when it comes to designing patterns?
Yeah, I have a whole entire course to share if anybody's interested in learning everything that I know about designing. I think that there is so much to know about designing. And the thing that I'll say is that the best advice is to familiarize yourself with having a very good foundation of crochet education, because when you have that, then you can use a universal language to not only write and design anything that you can imagine, but you'll have a universal language so that anyone can read and follow whatever it is that you produce, and you'll have very few questions, and that's a fantastic place to be.
And ideally, that's how you want patterns written.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm the kind of pattern writer that I put my email address on every single pattern that I sell, because if you have any questions, I want you to email me directly, not my team. I don't have a team. I don't have an assistant. I don't have anything like that. I want you to email me and ask me. I don't want you to feel like you have to go and do a Google search or you have to go to your crochet group. And whatever question you have about my pattern, I'll get back to you. And so often it's a very minor question that really is just about stitch counting or stitch recognition or what it means to work in a join round or something like that. So I can give people a piece of it, like in education, so that way they can read and follow my pattern. And I'm saying all that to say that I've produced enough things that some people might be afraid to put their information out there, but I'm so confident that the way I've written is for a universal audience that I'll give anybody my email address, and if they have any questions, they can write me.
and that's one thing that I've learned, when it comes to designing patterns. Patterns are really supposed to be written in a uniform language.
Yeah.
It's like things are supposed to be in certain areas of the pattern, but I think that's a little subjective because different people will say different things.
I think that you can get creative with some things, but I think that there are some foundations that need no creativity. They just are what they are.
Because
and I think that's.
Mm-hmm. I had two people that did tech editing on patterns that I wrote up, and I noticed differences on things that they said, but it helped me out a lot. And they did it for free for my pattern, and that's where I picked up on certain things. Learning about designing is advice that they gave me. And whenever I have my patterns tested, I always ask my testers, Did you have questions? Do you think anything needs to be worded better or clearer? I want to know.
Yeah, that's all part of the process. I think that making sure in even the testing phase, whether or not there's any question, because if I, even now when I have a pattern tested, if two people need clarification on something, then I know that it needs to be, reworded or clarified in some way.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really important to have things tested to eliminate any kind of question.
And some things are hard to put into words.
It can be tricky to put things into words. I think that there are a lot of formatting examples that help so that you don't feel like you're reinventing the wheel. And I think that that's something that really helped me to design anything that I want, because some things are very easy to crochet, like a granny square, arguably. I can tell you how to make it, I can show you. But if you're looking at the instructions for a granny square, it's a very complex stitch and round repeat. It is not an easy beginner pattern. There really aren't simplistic ways to write it. You really have to write it in its complicated state. So I think that's a really good example of something that's so easy, but the words that I have to use, the phrasing, the repetition symbols,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a little intimidating.
And kind of like you're supposed to be consistent. If you were, if you like capitalize things, you need to be consistent throughout.
Yes.
Like
Yep.
change, you could do like capital CH, or or you could do this chain C, capital C, and then lowercase h. But whichever way you choose to do it, you need to do it throughout the entire.
You've got to have the uniformity. Yeah, that's right. Because I
I'm
think
learning.
as a pattern reader, if someone sees a discrepancy, they're going to question everything about what you do. Like, oh, well, if they put capital C, capital H here, but they put lowercase c, h over here, what else am I missing? Can I really trust this?
And Sherry, when it comes to reading patterns, it is like a written pattern is almost like that. Because how they're saying it on video tutorials, it's almost how it's written. The only main difference usually is the abbreviations instead of the words. But it really is. And that's one thing I've discovered. Now, one thing that I'm really curious about, because this is something that I'm still trying to learn more on, and I struggle with this some when it comes to designing patterns. Is there ways to kind of learn the stitch counts and multiples where, like maybe an easy resource that will give that information, or a way to learn it where you kind of know just which stitches flow together?
Yeah, absolutely. So, shameless shout out to the learning path at the American Crochet Association. I have an entire class on what that means. So there are far too many stitches in the world and stitch combinations for me to explain every single one of them. So really, essentially, every stitch has a multiple, and that multiple is going to be different in rows as it is in rounds. So if I'm making a hat that is worked in joined rounds, the multiple is going to be different than that stitch in rows. And that's all I'll say on that right now, because every stitch is different. When you are working in rows, I think the confusing thing for most people is that you'll see something like, this stitch is worked in multiples of 12 plus 8 plus 3. And you're like, what the heck? What does that even mean? So to break that down more simply, it's that the stitch multiple itself is 12. I think that's the number I use. Sorry, I'm throwing out a bunch of numbers. So you're going to either work this, in multiples of 12, 12, 24, 36, 48. And then it ends in some way. So you need 8 more. So whatever multiple of 12 you pick, you add 8. And then because it's a row, you need a starting chain. So that's whatever the +2, +3, +1. So whatever stitch you want to use, however you want to recreate it, I think it depends on what you want to do with it. Do you want it in rows or you want it in joined rounds? And then depending on that, then you either need a little bit on the end because it's in rows, that +8 +3, and then whatever height you need. And if all of that sounded confusing and you want more, believe me, I have an entire course at the American Crochet Association in the Learning Path. I will tell you everything that you need to know, and I even have tons of stitch tutorial resources, and that way you can test these theories out on multiple stitches worked in rows and in joined rounds, so you can really get a feel for what it means.
Now, see, Dora's bringing up, and this is something that a lot of content creators have issues with. When you try to do tutorials, your hands want to drift out of camera range.
Yeah.
It's normal when you first start doing tutorials. You just gotta, the more you do it, it gets better. And I hear some people will use like tape to mark off the camera range. And I've heard that there's certain apps too that you can see it on your TV while you're filming. Those are things that might help with that. But I know when I first started filming tutorials, you would always see my hands drifting to the corner. And then I would notice and bring it back. And then how many times I had to refilm because I did drift out of camera range completely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't film a lot of tutorials just because that's not the realm I want to be in. I want to be in education, not so much, stitch content. But something that really helped me when I was learning was having some kind of apparatus that holds your filming device directly over your head. But I think so many people film way too close, and that's how you drift. But if you film further away, then whenever you're editing, if you're going to edit, then you can always cut down the framing. And that way, even if you do drift, you're still drifting within the frame of where you're filming. And then you can better control where the frame is. So it doesn't look like your hands are doing this. You can cut the frame to where your hands always look center. So maybe that'll help.
All right. And this was one thing I was wondering about. Cheryl was asking, is there a resource that shows, say, all stitches with a multiple of 8?
Oh, so you want a multiple of 8 and you want to know what all stitches are with a multiple of 8. Oh, that's an interesting question. If there is a resource that will divide that down for you, I would love to hear about it. But right now, whenever I'm looking for a certain stitch multiple, I either remember because I've memorized most of my stitch pattern books. I do have quite a few. Or I'll flip through my stitch pattern books to find the multiple that I'm looking for. So really, it's very manual for me based on like my stitch pattern books.
See, that's one thing. I really wish there would be a source that would break up stitches like that. Like if it's a multiple of 2, list a bunch of stitches with a multiple of 2, 4, whatever, or odd number. It would make stuff easier.
I think that you're right. And I would love to see a database like that. My opinion is that there are far too, I don't know, maybe that's why you need it, is there's far too many iterations. I would love to see, oh my gosh, he has got so many opinions today. I would actually love to see an online library, kind of like Yarn Sub. I wish there was like a resource like that. So maybe if anybody's listening who can develop something like this would be great. So many stitch patterns are public, they're public domain. And the stitch patterns that I have probably like 5 or 6 favorites. But even within these favorites, they're essentially just sharing the same stitches over and over again. They're just using different yarns, or they're doing something slightly different with it. Like You know, maybe there's 2 chains instead of 1 or something like that. Or maybe they're using double instead of, you know, half double. But it would be really nice to see a resource like that. I think it would be helpful.
I think it would be too. But I do think, like, because certain stitches, you can see, like, maybe someone did something slightly different, kind of like what you were saying, where you can make the stitch count this if you do this. You can make it this if you do that, where you may not always be able to completely prove it. But it would, and I'm shocked no one's, like, done it.
Maybe it's in the works somewhere. I don't know. That would be nice, but I'm not aware of anything like that.
They need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to know, who's influenced you on your crochet journey?
I think the most influential person for me was the first crochet book I got, which was from Debbie Stoller, the Stitchin Bitch. And do you know that book?
No.
Okay. I don't have it right here. I feel like it's, do I have it right here? I actually have a signed copy, so it might be like in a special, yeah, it's put away in my bookshelf because it's precious. So Debbie Stoller, 25 years ago, came out with Stitchin Bitch, which is a crochet pattern book, but it was also a educational resource. But it was put together in a really fun, approachable way. So as a person who didn't own any resources like that and didn't have any, and it was like this cute, colorful, and not your grandma's young, fresh pattern book with resources, it taught me a lot in a way that I understood, but I also was really inspired by the author, Debbie Stoller. Man, if nobody knows Debbie Stoller, we gotta, I hope you learn today, because she is an icon. Since I was so inspired by her that when I started crocheting professionally, probably 15 years ago, I actually got to interview her. And again, that's why I say, reach out. You never know. I mean, just reach, if somebody inspires you or something like that, you never know. And I got to interview her and chat with her. And I sent her my book and she signed it and sent it back to me. So yeah, that was really influential, not just from a crochet perspective in terms of like what could be possible for someone like me, but just for someone like that to be so accessible for the crochet community. That really shaped how I wanted to be in the crochet community.
Awesome. And it's funny, like, the things that influence us.
Yeah.
And you never know when someone's going to influence. I mean, just talking in the chat, you may be influencing somebody.
That would be lovely. I think that's what it's all about. I think that we're meant to inspire and influence each other. I think it's circular.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and take this time. If anyone has any questions they want to ask, feel free to ask in the chat. I know we've gotten some questions already, but if there's anything you want to know about Salena, ask her. Now's the time.
It's now or never. No, I'm
kidding. Now or never. And is there anything you want to bring up that, we hadn't gotten into, Salena?
If you don't mind me saying, I'd love to invite everybody to my community. It is on Facebook, and I do not like Facebook, but I do love my Facebook group, my community. It's a free online space where people can, connect with me, but connect with other crocheters. You can ask questions, you can share your projects. And the entire group is just community centered. It's about building community, learning, growing, and sharing together. So if anyone would like to come and join, it's group American Crochet Association on Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm in Selena's group.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Now me, I'm not big on Instagram.
I'm not even. I do not like Instagram. It exhausts me. It feels frustrating. It is not fun. I do not like it.
I'm not a fan of Instagram.
Mm-mm.
Now I'll post
Same.
when I put out a new video. But that's the only thing I do.
Yeah.
I don't really chat with people on Instagram.
Well, you're there more than I am, lady.
Even Facebook, I get lazy on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, the page I don't like. I mean, if I didn't have my group, I wouldn't even log in. I don't like social media because it feels like a platform where someone with a bullhorn is trying to tell you something. And I don't really enjoy that. And I think that's why groups are so exciting for me, is that it allows multiple people to have conversations that they couldn't have elsewhere. And it allows people to share. And I would much rather that than me just having a bullhorn on a platform.
And there's pros and cons to social media.
Oh, absolutely.
Pretty much like anything in life, you got your pros and cons.
That's right. We could have that conversation about chocolate right now.
But yeah. So I am curious though, what are you currently crocheting? If you can talk about it, that is.
Yes. So I am crocheting. I'm pretty much done. I'm making one more sample for my next book. My next book, I'm going to turn it into my publisher on April 1st. And then it will not see the light of day until next year. But I will be sharing individual patterns for that collection in my Ravelry shop and in my Salena Baca crochet group. And yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. But outside of that, I have 2 other collections I am going to be producing this year. Next up is going to be a collection of bags, and I'm pretty excited to be partnering with Yarn Inspirations to put that together. So it's only going to be Yarn Inspirations yarn, and this is going to be a new collaboration with them. I've done other things with them in the past. But we have a lot of ideas to really share the things that I'm doing with yarns that they make in really exciting ways. So I think that's going to be something that we're going to be doing all this summer. So if you follow Yarn Inspirations or you follow me, you'll probably see more of my work there.
Awesome. But yeah, go check out more about Salena.
Check it out.
Check her out. And I hope y'all enjoy getting to know Salena today. Because like I said, she's been a huge inspiration to me. I wouldn't know how to crochet without her. So for that, I will always be thankful. And it don't look like anyone has any other questions.
I guess we told them everything they wanted to know. They're speechless.
I think they asked like during the live more. But sure. Yeah. Tomorrow I will be going live again at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Barbara with Crochet Therapy will be my guest star. And we're going to be talking about GrannySquare. So be there or be square.
You said it. I love it.
And all right, so I'm doing things a little bit differently on today's live with the extra entries into my monthly giveaway. Yeah, I do a monthly giveaway and I give extra entries. Today's live, I'm just going to do a replay word. And y'all can enter on the replay instead of how I normally do it. Because I'm sure Selena's busy, probably has some other things to do.
Lady, I got time for you.
I mean, we could do it on the live if you want to do it that way. I mean, I just didn't know if you wanted to sit and watch people getting drawn for extra entries.
It is your show. You tell me what the format is.
All right. We'll do a little bit of that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Oh, all right. So let's see. I normally pick 6 people during the live, and then I had 1 channel member and 1 super chat. So we'll do 9 people to get extra entry. So each person will get 9 extra. I'm sorry. Scratch that, scratch that. 9 people put up. Hold up. 6, 7. No, it's 8 people, right? 8. I can't do my math. I'm sorry.
No, I don't math well either.
All right,
Math is
8
hard.
people. Well, we'll do 9. I'll do 9 since I accidentally said 9. 9 people will get 5 extra entries. All right. Let me get Nightbot up. My brain don't function sometimes. All right. Let me get a keyword. In just a moment. All right. Zoomies is the keyword. Zoomies. Just like it is on the screen. Because my cats love to get the zoomies.
That's so cute.
So I'm going to pick 9 people randomly. Each person will get 5 extra entries into February's giveaway. So zoomies is the keyword. Yeah, I do a monthly giveaway.
Nice.
Hi, Judy. How are you today? And in the event that I didn't tell anybody hi in the chat, hello, hello. I mostly said my hellos in the chat today. I typed them. So zoomies is the keyword.
So what's the giveaway this month?
It's kind of a mystery, but if they live in the U.S., it'll be ice yarn.
There'll be what? Sorry?
Ice yarn.
Oh.
Now,
I have
outside
not tried that yet.
Ooh, they got nice yarn.
Oh, I've heard.
Now, if they live outside of the U.S., then I do an Amazon gift card.
Nice.
Hi, Heidi. How are you today? Well, hopefully you can catch the replay. Yeah, we're fixing to wrap things up. But if you want to try to get extra entries, zoomies is the keyword. 9 people will get 5 extra entries. All right. I think give it just a little longer. But you know, one thing about ice yarn, a lot of people bring up the shipping. But if you average the price of the yarn and the shipping, it averages out. A lot of times I find they're cheaper than like normal yarn you order in the United States.
Yeah. I think it's just, I think that so many retailers offer free shipping that it hurts my, even if I have to pay $4 for shipping, it hurts my feelings. But like, if you just include it in the price and you tell me it's free shipping, my mindset is totally like, you can trick me into that. But if I see the cost, that's hard for me.
And that's the thing that because the yarn might be $1 a skein, and then you got the high shipping, but then if you average the price, that might be like $4.
Oh, yeah. I guess you got to look at that way. And if you like the yarn, if you like dealing with it, if you like working with it, then that's just the cost of the yarn.
Now, the one thing though, you have to buy in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just buy like one skein of a certain type of yarn. You're going to get a pack.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I love ice yarn.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to look into it again.
Right. Zoomies is the keyword. I'm counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and good luck. Okay. Oh, I hit the wrong button. All right. Good luck. Congratulations, Janet. You get 5 extra entries. And GrannyDee gets 5 extra entries. Congrats. And Angela Wright. Congrats. And Lacey Lavender won.
Yay!
Congratulations. I'm writing it down. Corlan 9807 gets 5 extra entries. Judy Howe gets 5 extra entries. Mandy Longbine gets 5 extra entries. And Beverly Fowler gets 5 extra entries. One more. Sherry Knowles gets 5 extra entries. So congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations.
And now I'm going to leave the word for replay. I think your name was on there, Heidi. All right. So the replay word is keyword. I'll pick 2 people on the replay to get 5 extra entries. So the keyword is keyword to having your comment. Wait for the live to end. Then the comment section will open up, and that's where you type the word. All right. So that should be everything. I was about to tell everyone to go Alien Invade GrannyDee. I'm thinking it's Saturday. On Saturdays, GrannyDee goes live after me.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed today's live, and I think this covers everything. Thank you again so much for coming live with me, Salena. I enjoyed having you.
Thank you, Connie. It's always nice to chat with you. You always have very kind things to say, and I'm so glad that you're part of the crochet community.
Thank
It's really
you.
nice chatting with you. Thank you.
And thank you again for teaching me to crochet.
My pleasure. Happy to do it.
So I hope everyone is having a fabulous journey day. Be the light. Always remember to be the best sparkly you that you can be. Be cool, be kind, and I hope everyone has a fabulous weekend. Bye, everyone.